So we're a little under a month away. We're getting real close to the return of CW's Arrow, as well as a bunch of the other CW shows. What I'm going to do is touch on the character of Oliver Queen, the Green Arrow. We're going to talk about his origins, where he comes from, and we're also going to talk about his power set, or more importantly, a lack thereof. We're going to talk about everything that Ollie can do, what he's done, and we're going to treat this, kind of like the Flash video. We're going to treat this like a primer for, Green Arrow, so that way, if you aren't necessarily caught up, you won't be left out in the cold, and you'll know what's going on. Before we dig in, I post new videos every week. Make sure to click subscribe so you can become one of Earth's mightiest subscribers, and also tap that bell button so you make sure you don't miss anything. So let's get the publication stuff out of the way. The Green Arrow was created by the artist-writer team of George Papp and Mort Weisinger. If you go back and look at some of those old illustrations, it becomes very clear where the influence comes from. It's very clear that it comes from Robin Hood. The other thing that, would probably be obvious to anybody that was reading those comics back then is the fact that this comic came out around a time where Batman was the most popular character at the time. Not like much has changed in the last, 50, 60, 70 years, but I mean, that's what it was, so they wanted another character just like that. Only they wanted him to be an archer. And you look at it, it becomes really apparent when you see like the Arrow car and the aeroplane and the Arrow cave and all this other stuff. There's even a joke made by Harley Quinn where she asked him, why didn't you just call it the Quiver? And Ollie's like, I didn't think about that. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you right now, one of the funny things about Green Arrow is that his Batman similarities didn't stop there either. He actually had a Joker-like foe. He had a Robin-like sidekick by the name of Speedy. He also had a bat signal, but it was an arrow signal. And I mean, it was all a bunch of craziness. Before we jump into the minutia of Green Arrow, let's talk about his origin. His origin is convoluted as all get out, because it's actually changed several times throughout his publication history. And a lot of it's been variations of one thing or another, but we're gonna go with the Andy Diggle version of the origin because it's the most respected and most revered origin, or version of it rather, where Oliver Queen is pretty much just a rich dude who washes up on this uncharted island where there's this crazy heroin smuggling operation going on. And he basically just gets a load of eye-opening experiences where he's watching these people be subjugated, he's watching these people being essentially ruled and ruled by fear for the most part. Between this and having to fight for his own survival, he ends up training to overcome these criminals. Once he does so, winds up finding a way back to Star City and decides to put his newfound talents and his wealth to good use. So let's get into what makes Green Arrow so damn special. Now, if I just told you that he was a master archer, that would really be an understatement, because the Green Arrow doesn't have superpowers. He's really running off of pure ability and natural talent. And of course, training and experience. The thing you gotta keep in mind with this character is that he has a bow that requires a ridiculous amount of draw strength. I want to say it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 100+ pound draw strength for his bow. He actually has been quoted as being able to fire 29 arrows in under a minute. That may not seem like a lot to you, just hearing it off the cuff like that, but just think that makes him Legolas from Lord of the Rings. So that is no small feat. Green Arrow's also been known to shoot arrows up to almost 120 miles per hour. And this is something we've seen on the show too. He is able to shoot arrows down the barrel of guns. He's been able to shoot multiple arrows at once and hit multiple targets. He's been able to pluck arrows, like opponents' arrows, out of the sky with his own shots. The thing that most people recognize Green Arrow for is his trick arrows. And they range from literally the awesome to the absolutely ridiculous. Fire arrows, he's got nth metal arrows, he's got explosive arrows, he's got putty arrows, he's got computer hacking arrows, he's got grappling hook arrows, parachute arrows. The guy literally has an arrow for just about every situation humanly possible. Like, if you think about the fact that Batman always has the right thing that he needs at the time in his utility belt, imagine the same thing with Green Arrow in his quiver. Now, if you're thinking that all he has up his sleeve is his bow and arrow, you would be wrong, because he is a master hand-to-hand combatant. He's also a capable swordsman. To the point, he has been able to go toe-to-toe with characters like Deathstroke and hold his own. Much like any great superhero, from back in the Golden Age, you can't just assume that he started with his own issue, his own #1 issue. No, he actually kicked in. It was in More Fun Comics number 73, and that was like 1941, I want to say. He pretty much debuted in a comic that didn't even have him on the cover. If I'm not mistaken, More Fun Comics number 73 has Dr. Fate on the front of it. But anyways, neither here nor there. Even though technically he first appeared in More Fun Comics number 73, he actually didn't get a legit origin story until number 89. And that's when all the craziness starts really coming out. Now, the classic Oliver Queen look that we all kind of know and love, that actually didn't start back in the 40s. This was something that didn't come along until like 1969 into the 70s. And that is the Van Dyke beard that he is kind of iconically known for and has not really ever been seen to have in the Arrow TV show, except for when he was on the island and all scraggly. One of the things that's kind of cool about the Green Arrow, he's been treated as kind of like the social justice warrior. That was technically his attitude even before, the whole term social justice warrior even became a thing. Like, he was one of those types of guys. He was always looking out for the little guy, keep an eye out for those who were less fortunate, even though, technically he was a billionaire playboy, no different than Bruce Wayne. He had his own, not Wayne Tech, but I want to say it was like Queen Consolidated or Queen Limited, something like that. You would probably consider Green Arrow kind of the journeyman of of just about any superhero that came out back then. 'Cause, he has been through the ringer when it comes to, superhero comic books. He's also had some of the craziest stuff happen to him. He's been one of those characters who's, kind of jumped in and around a lot of different characters' books. One of his most well-known team-ups actually came in the form of Green Lantern and Green Arrow as a duo, back in the early 70s. This was a time when the Green Lantern and Green Arrow were out there righting the wrongs and, trying to, uplift people and do what's right by society and protect the innocent, not just fighting like street toughs and criminals and thugs and whatnot. They were actually out there they were doing it all. It was almost like they were running for president and vice president of the United States of America. I'm talking handing out cigars, kissing babies, handing out soup, doing everything, trying to help the disenfranchised. It was a very interesting run, and I highly recommend it. Is worth going back and looking at it. It's definitely worth going back and giving it a read. The one thing people will probably remember from it more than anything else, though, is that this was also at the time when his sidekick, Roy Harper, Speedy, who I mentioned earlier, he was like his version of Robin. And he kind of went through some dark shit because... there was a story arc where they focused on the fact that Roy Harper was addicted to heroin. The fallout of this doesn't happen right away, but we find out later on down the road, I think this was like many years after the fact, that, he has become HIV positive. And you would think that this was like a reaction to the fact that, the Batman creative team killed off Jason Todd. But this was actually before any of that. So it's almost like the Batman creative team looked at what Green Arrow was doing and was like, oh, Roy Harper's addicted to heroin? Hold my beer. We'll top it. But the thing is, Green Arrow was still kind of one of those characters that was just, a fish out of water in most scenarios. It wasn't until in the late 80s, after Crisis on Infinite Earths, that Mike Grell came along and completely overhauled the Green Arrow series, and that's where we get the Longbow Hunters run, which is considered to be one of the best stories out there for the Green Arrow. And during this run, they pretty much got rid of all the goofy stuff, the boxing glove arrow, the acid arrow, all the gadget stuff, and they got back down to just probably something more akin to the Arrow TV show that we currently have right now. Only kind of predates it by over 30 years. But it was a more grounded take on the character, for the most part. as much as a comic book can be grounded. The entire Longbow Hunters run is, I would dare say, it was probably the blueprint for Arrow. The lack of a mask, the whole not really featuring like superpowers, like Black Canary did not use her signature canary cry really in any of the series. I mean, I'm just going to tell you right now, go read the Longbow Hunters. Trust me, if you've been watching Arrow for any stretch of time, you'll look at it and go, huh, actually, yeah, I could totally see how they use this as a blueprint for the TV show. And the thing is, it's kind of funny because, you know, and this is one of those stories I remember reading as a kid, but like I don't really have a great memory of it now. Like I had to go back and actually reread 0 Hour. But in 0 Hour, Hal Jordan, and this is a really major thing because Hal Jordan and Oliver Queen are longtime friends, close confidants. There aren't too many other superheroes in the DC universe that are as close as these two characters. I think really the only two characters who are probably as close as Oliver Queen and Hal Jordan, and by that I mean Green Arrow and Green Lantern, are Flash and Green Lantern. In the 0 Hour storyline, Green Arrow had to kill Green Lantern, and this was a big thing because of how close they were. Not too long after that, the Green Arrow was pretty much killed off in an explosion. His body was completely decimated. And it was one of those weird things. It was like they just kind of, I don't know, it felt like kind of one of those rushed deaths. Like it was like it just kind of came out of nowhere. And it just, yeah, anyway. Connor Hawke was used as a replacement for the Green Arrow, and it just didn't really work for anybody because that character just for some reason, it was kind of like the opposite of what happened with the Flash. Like when the Flash taken out in Crisis on Infinite Earths and replaced with Wally West, you know, people, it kind of grew on them and they got with it. Connor Hawke never grew on the audience. He never grew with the readers. It's one of those situations where it's kind of like, oh, okay, you know, we're just going to bring Oliver Queen back. We're going to have Hal Jordan, you know, resurrect him, you know, and it's pretty ridiculous. But, you know, hey, just go with it because comic books. And this storyline was kind of problematic for me because they basically resurrect Oliver Queen but without a soul. Because, you know, Oliver Queen wants to stay in heaven, but he wants to come back at the same time. It was kind of ridiculous. And I mean, he eventually gets his soul back, and I don't know, it was kind of one of those Deus Ex Machina moments for Connor Hawke, because he basically came down, saved the day. It was almost like, it was one of those situations where when you're reading that run, it kind of makes you feel like you're reading like Dragon Ball Z. Like we're watching Gohan, you know, fight Cell, and we're just waiting for Goku's spirit to come down and, you know, help give Gohan the boost that he needs to save the day. Like it's yeah. Green Arrow is probably one of the characters I think that I don't believe Green Arrow actually got good until now. Like when by now I mean like within the last like 10 years. Because I really could not read this character back then. He was a hot mess to read, in my personal opinion. I think Longbow Hunters is great, and I like a lot of his stuff with, you know, Green Lantern, but I was never a huge fan of him until I started watching the TV show. The new 52 run of Green Lantern, I'm still, like, you know, not completely caught up with. I'm still going through the process of going through a lot of the new 52 stuff. If any of it bears any weight, like I know I've heard a lot of good stuff about the Jeff Lemire run. I haven't gotten quite into that yet. I'm still kind of in the beginning stages of the Jeff Lemire run, but I'm going to try and get into a lot more of it because that's where we're going to be getting a lot of our influences for the Arrow Season 6, so because we got Richard Dragon that's going to be there, and we've already got some other characters that, you know, popped up in that particular run, but in the end, I'm already reading, like, you know, DC Rebirth Green Arrow, so I mean, you're, you know, definitely caught up there, and that is a fantastic. I've read like the first couple of volumes of it, and it's really good stuff. Now that we've gotten you caught up on Green Arrow, I'm going to do something a little different, and something I wish I would have done. I think I actually intended to do in my Flash video, but I just, for whatever reason, I forgot about it. So we're gonna do it with this video. I'm gonna do a recommendation on stuff I think you should read or check out if you want to get to know Green Arrow better. I'm gonna give 3 picks of books that you should check out. The first one is, gonna be The Longbow Hunters by Mike Greff. The next one I'm gonna throw out is gonna be Green Lantern and Green Arrow by Dennis O'Neil and Neil Adams. I'm also gonna throw out Green Arrow Year 1 by Andy Diggle and Jock. So guys, let me know what you think about Green Arrow, and if you have any questions about the Emerald Archer, let me know in the comments section. Also, if you enjoyed this video, click the like button, and if you haven't already, click that subscribe button so you can become one of Earth's mightiest subscribers, and tap that bell button so you don't miss anything. Thank you again for watching. I'll see you next time. Plus Ultra.